What would you do if made the intro just start with you gargling water?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. The intros are just going to be my bodily functions pre-podcast.
All right, episode 16, just fart straight into the microphone.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 15 of the Magus Brothers podcast. I am Tyler, and with me always is the wonderful...
Hey, y'all, I'm Feyerbrand. Thank you so much for joining us. This is episode 15, which goes along with Final Fantasy 15. It made me cry real tears. I am not ashamed. Nor should I be. You're right. Anyways, today we are diving into the second half of the Endwalker job changes. We are going to be really digging deep down into all these tool tips and all that other juicy stuff, just like we did in episode 14. And you won't get as much gushing over this from me. However, Tyler is sure to probably talk everybody's ears off once we get to a very specific job, which I'm sure most of you already know what it is.
It's Summoner. I'm just going to spoil it now.
It's Summoner.
Before we dive in, though, I'm going to take a moment to say, last episode, I started out by saying potencies were placeholders. They didn't matter. We weren't going to go over them. And we ended up going over them. I'm going to not do that this time. I did halfway through think it was funny to just say placeholder, but apparently that's annoying. So
yeah,
we're not gonna do that. However, I will reserve the right to do that for certain potencies to emphasize the power, because I did find it relevant on Gunbreaker and Samurai, for example, when we were really trying to emphasize, like, this is going to be a very powerful move. Here's a potency of 1200 just to kind of highlight that. But aside from that, we aren't going to go over, potencies otherwise, because there's too many. That's a lot of numbers.
It is a lot, especially with like the healers overall. Like everything's getting potency boosts, so it would just be so many numbers flying around everywhere.
Yeah. So we're gonna fly by potencies and only highlight them when we are trying to really emphasize the gravity of a certain move. But we are going to start today with healers.
Yay!
As far as healers go, I have never played one. In all of my MMO history, I have never dabbled in a healer other than, maybe just like a tiny smidgy bit just to try and clear something, and me not understanding a toolkit at all. Fair, you've got some healing experience, right?
Yes, I have both White Mage and Astrologian at 80, and I'm waiting to level Scholar until Endwalker. It's currently sitting at 70 until Endwalker, because I'm probably going to end up leveling it as a Summoner, and I want to level Summoner from as low as possible because of the changes. However, I do have a decent amount of experience on White Mage and Astrologian. I have not mained them for any extended period of time. However, I have run content with them, like dungeons and whatever, just because the queues are basically instant. So I am familiar with these skills. So I'll be able to talk us through it or clear up any sort of, doubt or whatever.
Good, because I'm going to need it with Astrologian. Let's be real. I haven't touched that one. Scholar and White Mage, I at least know decently. All right, so let's start with White Mage. And actually, before we start with specific healers, I believe across the board, most of the offensive healing spells had a cast time reduction down to 1.5 seconds,
yes,
down from 2.5. So that's going to be a pretty blanket statement for most offensive spells. There might be some exceptions like Holy. I'm not 1,000% certain on that, but most of your filler spells like Glare and that sort of thing did have cast time reductions. So yay, healers.
Yeah, so your big AoEs are still the normal 2.5 seconds with 0 spell speed. However, your main spamming attack like Broil, Glare, and oh my God, what is the name of the Astrologian one? Malefic. Maleficent? That one. Astrologians was already a second and a half, but they also brought White Mage and Scholars down to a second half as well. And that's actually ridiculously freaking strong, because your goal as a healer is to only be healing on the off global cooldown.
I thought you were going to say your goal as a healer is to deal damage.
I mean, let's get real. You are like a white mage is just a glare turret. So your global cooldown heals is generally like your oh crud button. Somebody messed up a mechanic, or, you know, in high end extreme raids, there's like massive raid wide damage coming out. But for the most part, you're spamming glare or whatever and healing everything on the off global cooldown. And that's, you know, perfect world scenario. So now that glare and broiler brought down to a second and a half, you're not clipping the global cooldown, so to speak. You'll second and a half cast, you'll have a second to do any off globals before you can even queue up your next damage ability. So it's just going to make everything so much smoother, and I absolutely love this change. This is fantastic.
Yes, great change. DPS harder healers, we love you. Or at least I love you. Keep me alive.
I love healing. I enjoy it in this game.
All right, so let's dive in with White Mage. At 82, they get 2 traits, Glare Mastery and Holy Mastery, which is going to upgrade. It's going to upgrade Glare straight to Glare 3. Now, I don't know if this is accurate. I feel like jumping Glare 2 just to Glare 3 is kind of interesting choice. We'll see what the final translations end up being, but for now, we're going to go with what was there on the tooltips. Glare becomes Glare 3, and Holy becomes Holy 3.
Yeah, I heard something that it's like a weird translation thing is why it's 3. I don't know if that's true or not, but that is something that I was reading on like Reddit, or I don't remember where. Maybe it was the Balance Discord or whatever. I don't know. But so like, I think it's dumb. Just make it Glare 2, please.
Yeah, Glare 2, Holy 2. That makes sense. But at 82, to correspond with those traits, they get 2 spells. Obviously, Glare 3 and Holy 3. Glare 3 is just a straight up potency increase, and so is Holy 3. It still stuns, still great for AoE. That's it. Potency upgrades.
Yep.
At 86, they get the new spell, or sorry, before that, at 85, they get the trait Enhanced Healing Magic. We're not going to go over the potencies, but Cure, Medica, Cure 2, Regen, Cure 3, Medica 2, Medica 2's Regen, Afflatus Solus, and Afflatus Rapture all get potency boosts. That's a lot of potency boosts.
That's you're just going to be a more effective healer. What's not to love?
There's no bad side to that. At 86, they get the ability Aqua Veil. It is a 60-second cooldown, and it's going to reduce damage taken by a party member or self by 15%, and it lasts for 8 seconds. So just a neat little party buff, self buff.
Just a little bit of extra mitigation, targetable on anybody. Super flexible,
Yeah, and I think all healers. I remember in an interview with Yoshi saying all the healers were going to get some sort of little defensive buff like that. So it's kind of neat.
Yes, I do. I believe so.
At 88, they get a trait called Enhanced Divine Benison. Divine Benison, I believe, is their little shield that they get.
I don't remember.
I'm pretty positive it's their. Wow, way to let me down. I'm pretty positive it's their shield. It's like the one shield White Mage gets, and this trait allows it to stack up to 2 charges.
Great, love it.
2 shields, great. And then their level 90 ability. We saw it in the job trailer, and we were curious what it is, but it is called Lily Bell. It's a little bit of a mouthful, so we're going to power through. It is a 3-minute cooldown, and it places a healing blossom at the designated location and grants 5 stacks of Lily Bell to self. It's got a 15-second duration. Taking damage will expend 1 stack of the Lily Bell to heal self and all party members within a radius of 20 ohms with a cure potency of to be determined. The effect of this action can only be triggered once per second. The healing blossom will dissipate when all stacks are expended or that 15-second duration expires. Any remaining healing stacks of Lily Bell, when the effect expires, will trigger an additional healing effect of X cure potency for every remaining stack. So basically, if you're taking damage, it's just going to pulse out a heal. You've got 5 stacks of that pulse, and if there are stacks left at the end of that 15 seconds, it's just going to do a big AoE heal.
Yeah, and this ability, I forgot to say my one-liner, but this ability ties right into my one-liner, which is, do you guys remember Lightwell from Vanilla World of Warcraft? Because like, this is all it reminds me of, and I don't think this ability, I'm not excited about this. I don't think this ability is as cool as they're making it seem, because the White Mage has to take damage in order for it to pulse. So that's so ridiculously situational, to where in a perfect world, the only times the White Mage is taking damage is in unavoidable raid wides, and then it's only a 30 Yalm range, so it's not even like that big. And like
it's
raid
only 20.
bosses, is it 20? I thought I said range?
The range of it, like placing it is 30,
placing
but
it is 30. See, that's even worse. This is going to be probably one of those things that the very tippy top high end players and raiders are going to be able to utilize extremely well, but the other 99% of us, it's just not going to perform as well as maybe Square thought it would, because I don't know. I'm curious to get my hands on it, but I don't think it's going to perform.
So there's obviously there's fights in 24 mans, and I'm thinking of
Spoiler.
when he does his ultimate move and it like pulses and deals raid wide damage. Like every fight, raid wide damage in some aspect, and I could see this being beneficial because it's going to heal while the white mage may not be able to cast or something like that. I'm sure it's got its benefits, but it's one of those level 90 abilities where it's like you want to be stoked on it immediately. But this seems like a level 90 ability where it's like, before I can even get excited about it, I'm sitting here being like, I'm going to have to know a fight really well to be able to utilize this super well. And I don't want that to be my first thought with a level 90 ability,
Yeah, and like as a healer, ranged jobs like to be out of ranged. Like this only having a 20 yalm range from where you place it. Nobody ever stays that close to a healer. You always see bards and black mages like run to the corners of a boss arena to the point where the white mage is trying to get everybody in like a Medica 2 or whatever. They're too far. And this has an even less of a range than that. So like if I queue into a dungeon and I place it down in the most optimal spot, it's probably not even going to hit everybody because they're all over the place. Now, whereas if you're with a static, it's going to work a lot better because I can, hey, everybody stack here. You're more coordinated because they're not random people. So I don't think this ability is going to really prove incredibly useful in like pugs and stuff.
But then again, it is possible that as fight mechanics in this expansion, we might see a lot of unavoidable raid damage where it just pulses out, and just dropping this, whether it's in the middle of the arena or something, just to like heal melee or just to have extra heals in general. And it's just kind of like throw it and forget about it. I don't know. We'll see.
The jury is still out on this one, folks. We'll see how I feel after I get my white mage to 90 and run a couple dungeons.
All right, moving on to Scholar.
Oh, let me say my one-liner before we start.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Scholars is gotta go fast, I guess. That's cool.
So we'll get to that. Before we dive into Scholar, I feel like of all the healers, Scholars are kind of the most upset. And I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like you think it's justified, but I also think part of it is they just did not, like when we first got the live letter where they talked about job changes and stuff like that, it was like Scholar literally had one line of text versus like everybody else. So people were frustrated there. And then we got the job trailer and didn't get the job action trailer and didn't get to see a ton. And I'm not saying Scholar is bad, but like, Scholar does seem to have like the least amount of text here. I don't know.
It does. It does too.
And it's not to say that they're bad. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, is this the Dark Knight of healer? Like, do we have the right to be really upset? But
I think we do. We do, but not as much as we have to be upset as, say, Dark Knight. And that's because the other healers didn't get such extravagant abilities like tanks did. Like, if healers got some, ability that I'm like literally crying in my hands about because it's so amazing, and then Scholar got what it has now, then yeah, I would say we could call it the Dark Knight. However, Scholar just feels like it got a little gypped on things, and I will say that Scholar needs to be in that rework of 6.1 along with Dark Knight. And it's not because Scholar plays bad or anything. It's just Scholar's so much better once you already know a fight. Like, it's hard to prog as a Scholar. It's harder to prog as a Scholar because you just don't have that raw healing and that recover ability as much as like White Mage and now Astrologian has. Like, it's so much stronger when you already know what's going to happen because it's such a not reactive. What's
proactive.
The other one? It's such a proactive healing style that if you don't know the fight and you're going into something blind, like, you're probably going to be healing your butt off because you're like, oh, what's this mechanic? And it can just happen out of nowhere. It's going to be, I don't know. I do know that after watching a lot of the, after the media tour ended and a lot of the content creators were talking about Scholar changes, they did say that they felt the fairy is much more responsive, and there doesn't seem to be like that disconnect, kind of like how they're fixing things with Summoner, where like the summon would run to you first and then attack.
Oh my God, you don't even need to tell me about that Summoner pet jankiness.
That jank also seems to have been
We'll get there.
worked out of the Scholar Fairy. So we may be seeing the Fairy carrying a lot heavier and a lot more and really pushing out the healing a lot better, to the point where it doesn't feel like it's solely the Scholar and the Fairy's just there, with abilities that the Scholar commands it to do. So I'm hoping, because like so much of the Scholar is tied into the Fairy, and I think that's where, if they're going to fix Scholar, they need to fix it. So
yeah, that was going to be one of the things I led with when talking about Scholar, is that it doesn't talk about the Fairy here really, but that a lot of the things they talked about in the interview with Yoshi P was that a lot of the pet AI was getting improved with the Fairy specifically. However, that's not going to translate in a tooltip or anything, and that's kind of what we're working with here. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be looking at player feedback and reports, and just Reddit in general over how the Fairy feels.
Yeah, I do plan on actually leveling Scholar more and playing it a little bit more to get a little bit better at shield healing, because I am currently absolutely garbage at Scholar. I'm terrible. It's why it's only sitting at 70. So we're going to see. I'm going to see personally. So I think I'm going to be playing a lot of healer come Endwalker. I really, really enjoy healing in this game. And I really, for the most part, like the changes I'm seeing with the healers this time around. So healing, I'm going to be doing a lot of it.
So let's dive in. Let's dive into Scholar. 82, they get 2 traits. They get Broil Mastery 4, which is going to upgrade Broil 3 to Broil 4 and increase the potency of Ruin 2. They also get Art of Mastery, which is going to upgrade Art of War to Art of War 2. That goes right into their 82 spells they get, which is Broil 4 and Art of War 2. Self-explanatory there. At 85, they get the trait Enhanced Healing Magic. It's going to increase the healing potency of Physic, Embrace, and Seraphic Veil, and increase the barrier potency of Adloquium and Succor.
I think it's Succor.
Either way, potency increases across the board. Great time. And not just potency increases, because Physic, Embrace, Seraphic Veil are potency increases, but Adloquium and Succor are percent increases, and percentage scales differently, and that's nice.
That is nice. And that's the actual barrier potency of those abilities. So it sounds like not only is Scholar, now Embrace is the actual Fairy heal. So we are seeing a buff to the Fairy's heal, which is really good. It definitely needed that. But on top of that, they're also going to be pooping out even stronger shields, which is better. That's incredible. So this is actually kind of an interesting dynamic, because the healers are getting way higher potency heals and shields, and the tanks are getting way more mitigation. So it really is leading me to believe that everything's going to be hitting harder in Endwalker.
We will have to see, because you may very well be right there. At 86, Scholar's going to get an ability called Protraction. 60-second cooldown. It's going to increase maximum HP of a party member or self by 10% and restore the amount increased. As an additional effect, it's going to increase HP recovery via healing by 10%, and it's got a 10-second duration. It increases your HP total by 10%, heals that, and then you get extra healing for that duration. So it's almost like you get a bigger health bar. You get to soak some more damage.
This is actually ridiculously strong. Number one, it's not on the global cooldown. This is an ability, not a spell. And there's so much packed into this. This is like an incredible oh crap tool that I think is something Scholar has very much lacked, is oh crap tools. This is a really good ability. This is really strong. I wish the cooldown was shorter than 60 seconds, but not everything can be perfect.
At 88, they're going to get trait Enhanced Deployment Tactics, which is going to reduce the cooldown of deployment tactics to 90 seconds.
That's awesome. Deployment Tactics is one of their best abilities. It's so good.
And then at 90, their level 90 is an actual ability. It's going to be called Expedient. And this is your gotta go fast spell that we referenced.
Yeah.
It's going to grant Expedience and Desperate Measures to all nearby party members. Expedience is going to increase movement speed, and Desperate Measures is going to reduce damage taken by 10%. and it's got a 20-second duration.
This is such an interesting thing, man. Like that 20 seconds is long, and the movement speed is equivalent of sprint, and then you also get a reduced damage, 10% reduced damage on top of it. So this is another oh crap button for Scholar that's going to allow you to, get out of no zones faster. This is also, if you happen to still be in it, you're going to take less damage. This is interesting.
People memed about this ability for a while, and they still might be, honestly, but I think it's kind of cool. Like, you get the 10% damage reduction across the board, and everyone gets to go fast. And it's 20 seconds, which is a pretty generous duration.
Yeah, that's honestly what surprised me the most, is that this is 20 seconds. I really thought this was going to be like an 8-second thing, but 20 seconds is pretty massive. That's a massive buff, especially for getting two separate things involved in it. And this is cool. This is cool. You know what? It actually doesn't say. What's the cooldown? Is there a cooldown? What's the resource? Does this require Aether Flow?
Don't know. I feel like if it did, it would say.
Yeah, so more to come on that. Actually, I don't know what this requires. We don't have a recast time or, a resource. Because there's no way in heck you could just spam this.
More on that later. Scholar mains, let us know. All right. So right into Astrologen. Astrologen, before we jump in, was in a weird place. And not that Astrologen was ever bad, because they had great damage buffs. And Astrologen was one of those, like, you always needed them in Heaven's Ward. Like, no matter what healing comp you wanted an Astrologen. But they always had that little bit of identity crisis going on, to where, like, they had these great card buffs, but they also had pure healing or shield healing, but they didn't do either one of them as well as White Mage and Scholar. And I guess that was okay because of all the party buffs they could do at the same time. But like, as a healer, they were always this weird in-between place. And Sage came along, and it was a shield healer. And they were like, okay, now Astrologen is going to be a pure healer with White Mage. Scholar and Sage can be our barrier healers. We are going to separate healers even within the game to have pure and barrier healers. This is great. It's going to relieve this identity crisis that Astrologen had going on. And I'm kind of excited to see how it turns out.
Yeah, and like my one-liner for this is that it's just a worse White Mage. And I know that seems really harsh, but with some of the changes they made to the way your like Arcana works and your Yu-Gi-Oh cards and all of that, I'm not a big fan of it, because they took away your ability to stack 3 redraws. So now you can only cast redraw once after you draw a card. And they layered in even more RNG with like your Lord and Lady of Crowns abilities, because now like Lord of Crowns does damage. I don't know. I like Astrologen because of the flavor. I really dig the whole, the stars, the cards, all that stuff. But I'm curious on this one. I just don't think it's going to be as strong of a healer as White Mage, and the buffs seems like they kind of, gimped the buffs a little bit. So
can we agree though? And I don't want to say it's the best of the healers, because we do have Sage, and Sage has got some really cool looking flavor, especially if you're into that Gundam stuff. But like Astrologen's aesthetic and the way the spell effects look, and like their actual like visually, I think they're the coolest of the healers personally. Like having little star showers come down and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, all their stuff is so pretty.
Oh, I 100% agree. They have, out of the 3 healers we have now in Shadowbringers, they're 100% the flashiest. It looks so cool.
All right. So you already touched on one of the mechanics that got changed with their redraw, but before we dive into their new stuff, it looks like some level 50 and 70 ability changes occurred for them. So let's touch over that, because they are, important enough to note. Fair, you can help me dissect some of this, because as I mentioned, I don't know anything about Astrologen. New action at level 50. It's called Astrodyne. It's an ability, 1 second recast time. It grants an effect using the astro signs read from your divining deck. It can only be executed after reading 3 astro signs, and effects granted are determined by the number of different types of astro signs read. So with 1 sign type, you get the Harmony of Spirit. With 2 sign types, you get Harmony of Spirit and Harmony of Body. And with 3 sign types, you get Harmony of Spirit, Harmony of Body, and Harmony of Mind. It's a 15-second duration. The Harmony of Spirit effect will gradually restore your MP. The Harmony of Body effect will reduce spell cast time and recast time and auto attack delay by 10%. And Harmony of Mind effect will increase the damage dealt and healing potency by 5%.
So this is replacing another ability Astrologen already had. So you get an astro sign every time you use one of your cards. Every time you draw it and use your card. And each card gives let's see, there's 6 different cards and 3 signs. So there's 2 cards per sign. And whenever you cast one, that sign gets stocked onto your job gauge. And obviously your goal is always to get 3 different signs. And currently in Shadowbringers, it was pretty easy to get 3 different because you had so many redraws and you had sleeve draw. And there was lots of different ways for you to make sure you always got 3 signs. And previously, all it did was just give like a flat damage increase. I don't remember how many 3 signs gave, but now it's giving you actually a lot more utility with MP regeneration, faster attacks, and damage dealt. So this is really cool, honestly. I think this is way better.
At level 70, they get quite a few things here. Let's start with Minor Arcana. It's an ability with a 60-second recast time. It draws either the Lord of Crowns or the Lady of Crowns from your Divining deck. Arcanum effect can be triggered using the action Crown Play and can only be executed while in combat. And that goes right into Crown Play, which they also get at 70, which is an ability, and it triggers the effect of your drawn Arcanum. Does that make... Oh, should we go over the Lord of Crown and Lady of Crowns too? It sounds like those are all connected.
Yeah, so the Lord and Lady of Crowns are the Arcana you would be drawing.
Okay. So let's go over those. Lord of Crowns, also an ability, 20 Alm radius. It deals uninspected damage with a potency of 250 to all nearby enemies. This can't be placed on your hotbar, so it's AoE that you get, and I think it will replace Crown Play probably.
Yeah, it will. Crown Play is going to be an empty button, and it's going to change into whichever Lord or Lady card you draw.
Okay, perfect. And then Lady of Crowns, which is going to restore your HP and the HP of all nearby party members. It's a pretty decent cure potency, and again, can't be assigned to a hotbar. So it sounds like Crown Play. You use your Minor Arcana to draw one of these cards, and then you can activate Crown Play. And it's going to be Lord of Crowns or Lady of Crowns. So you get an AoE heal, or you get to do AoE damage.
Yeah, this is actually a really good change because currently the way it works is if you draw a card and you don't need that sign, but you're like out of redraws or whatever, then you can just turn it into a Lord or Lady. And what it would do is it just goes from a 3% damage buff to a 6% damage buff. And like that's it. That's all it really does. I didn't find myself using the Lord and Lady cards all that often because, well, it was so easy to get 3 of the Astro signs that I never really felt the need to do it. And that may be bad play on my part. I don't know. But I just never really found myself using it that much. And now this way, it's a separate ability. It's a separate way to actually play these cards. So it's a second toolkit. And I think that's cool. But it's also like super layered RNG because like if I draw a Lady of Crowns and that's the heal, but I don't find myself needing to use it, so I just leave it there, stocked up and ready to use. I could be, losing out on potential DPS because I'm not drawing more to try to get a Lord of Crowns for that AoE damage. So super situational. It's not something that you can really prep all that well or even, try to have ready because of the next mechanic. It's just going to be a situational thing that's, oh, okay, that's cool, that's nice, but it's not going to be like you're relying on this for anything.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that looking at it, the Minor Arcana has got a 60-second cooldown, so I feel like, in 60-second time, you can probably, you're probably going to have the ability to use an AoE heal and it be great or necessary or free, or do some free additional damage. Like that's an easy call to make within a minute before it comes off cooldown. And with them being abilities, they're off the global cooldown, so you can just weave it in somewhere, as kind of like a free button.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I didn't really think about what the recast time was, but this is once a minute. So yeah, that does take away like half my problems with it. So that's a good point.
So let's dive into their new stuff. At 82, they get 2 traits. They get Malefic Mastery 4, which is going to upgrade Malefic 4 to Fall Malefic, and Gravity Mastery, which is going to upgrade Gravity to Gravity 2. First thing that jumps out to me is why do they not get Gravity 3? Why do they have to have Gravity 2?
Scholar was the same way. They got Art of War to Art of War 2, not 3. So I'm thinking it's going to change.
Or just white mages are pretentious. I don't know, man.
They are. Most white mages are pretentious. I'm talking... Yeah.
Oh, don't you dare. Don't you dare.
You can tell her I said that.
I will. I'll go tell her. 82 ties into their new spells. They get Fall Malefic, which is going to, be a potency increase and new Malefic spell. And Gravity 2, which is going to be essentially a potency increase to their AoE. So pretty easy.
Pretty standard.
Then at 85, we get the trait Enhanced Healing Magic, which, I'm sure you guys have no idea what this is going to do, but it's going to increase the healing potency of Benefic, Helios, Benefic 2, Expected Benefic, Expected Benefic's regen, Expected Helios, and Expected Helios's regen. So just potency increases to heals across the board. Sound familiar? And then at 86, they get the ability Exaltation. I like that word. It's a 60-second recast time. It's got a 30 yalm radius, and it's going to range. Oh, whoops. 30 yalm range. Thank you for catching that.
I wish it had a 30 yalm radius.
Right? That'd be tight. It's going to reduce damage taken by self or target party members party member by 10%. It's got an 8-second duration. As an additional effect, it's going to restore HP at the end of the effect's duration with a pretty decent sized cure potency. So 8 seconds and then a heal pop and damage reduction. Pretty neat.
That's a great tool. No complaints there. That's awesome.
And then at 88, they get a new trait called Enhanced Celestial Intersection. Fair, do you remember what that one does?
Restores own or target party members' HP with a cure potency of 200 and has a regen.
So cure potency and a regen, and that's going to stack up to 2 charges now. Kind of like that benediction or divine benison, just like a little charge update to one of their abilities.
That's great. I think that's a great thing.
At 90, their level 90 is actually a spell, not an ability, and it does have a 20 yalm radius. 2-minute cooldown. It's called Macrocosmos.
That's a dope name.
Yeah, and it's kind of wordy, so let's power through this. Deals unexpected damage to all nearby enemies with a potency of decent for the first enemy and AoE fall off for all of 50% for all the remaining enemies. As an additional effect, it's going to grant Macrocosmos to self and all nearby party members, which is a 15-second duration. Action changes to Microcosmos upon execution. For the effect's duration, 50% of all damage is compiled. Restores HP equal to compiled damage when the effect expires or upon execution of Microcosmos. Amount of restored cannot exceed the target's maximum HP. So how that reads to me is that for all damage taken during this duration, you will heal 50% of that damage when you hit that button again. That's pretty cool.
That is incredibly cool. This is like this reminds me of White Mage's Assize because you're dealing damage and also healing, but you're healing in a delayed way, and there's no MP regen like Assize. But this is basically like a play on Assize, and that's my favorite White Mage ability. So I'm all here for it. And this is, has a little more flavor to it. They've really kind of made, as much as I hate to say this, they've really kind of made Astrologian like a time mage. And the reason I hate to say that is because I actually want time mage in this game. This really fits in with that, time mage feel where 50%, basically they're like rewinding time to where you only took 50% of that damage. So this is a great ability, super dope name. Long cooldown though, a 2-minute cooldown, that's heavy.
I mean, yeah, it's a heavy cooldown, but like, I think the White Mage's Lilybell had a 3-minute cooldown. So like
it did, but this feels stronger than that in my opinion.
Well, then the 2-minute cooldown is, better. It's like, oh, tight. It's only 2 minutes. They could have made it longer.
So this feels stronger than Lilybell because it's not potency based. This is directly based on how much damage everybody is receiving. And then it heals 50% of that. So I also can't imagine that it would work with like Super Bolide with a Gunbreaker. If they're at max health, use Super Bolide and go down to 1. I cannot imagine that it's going to restore half of that health. There's just no way.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that.
There's no way. I don't think those are going to work together. So we'll see. This is a cool ability. I'm excited to try it out.
All right. So the last of the healers is actually one of our new jobs that came with Endwalker, and it is called Sage. Fayer, hit us with that one-liner.
Sage, you're literally a Gundam.
That's it. That's all you need to know. You're a healing Gundam. With Sage, like we did with Reaper, we are not going to go over every tooltip here. It would just read poorly. This is an audio medium, and trying to explain an entirely brand new job is with this many traits and abilities is just not gonna be fun to listen to. So we're just gonna kind of talk about a high level overview with how we understand Sage working.
Yep.
And I'm gonna quote Larryzaur here. I believe you watched his videos as well, but I was watching some of them again today, and one of the things he says just jumped out at me, and I feel like it's so accurate. Is that in Gundam, there's always that faction or that or something to that effect that is like complete peaceful. They don't fight. They're pacifists. But then out of nowhere, they always have that one Gundam that's just OP, like they built it, even though they're pacifists. That's Charlayan here. They're the pacifists. They don't want to get involved. They're Sweden, and then all of a sudden they come out with this bad, and that's Sage. I feel like Larryzaur nailed it right there.
Yeah, I'd have to agree because they're calling it, the combat doctor. So it's pretty exciting. You're a battle cleric, basically.
So some of the things that jumped out about Sage for me is that they've got a couple of really interesting things that they can do. And I really, really like that they went such an interesting, unique route with Sage. But at the same time, it makes me actually, we'll circle back when we kind of do a little healer assessment. I'm not going to jump this shark, but I love that Sage has the ability to put a buff on a target. And in most party situations, I feel like it's going to be your tank, but not necessarily always, if they find a more creative use for it. But
It's going to be always.
I love that they can put an ability on somebody and then their damage spells heal for a certain amount to whatever that buffed party member is. So they're literally going to always be healing if they're dealing damage.
Yep.
And that's crazy. I just think that's so cool.
I think that reinforces the healers need to be DPSing thing. Like that.
Especially with this job.
And like that's such a big part of this healer's toolkit because it's called Cardia is the ability name, and it grants a buff on somebody called Cardion, and it works the same way as Dancer's closed position, where you just pick somebody, slap it on there, and then it's on there until you take it off or put it on somebody else or whatever. And the heal's potency is less than the fairies, but it's basically this is the This is the Sage's fairy heal, basically. Except you have you have more control over it because the fairy is just like, who am I targeting? It's all up to AI, whereas you as the player get to decide who's getting those heals.
Nice parallel, nice connection there. I hadn't made that connection.
Oh, I do not take credit for that. I think that was Mr. Happy's that I watched and he was talking about it.
There you go. I also like that Sage's got the ability to turn some of their damage spells into a dot or straight up flat damage. And the same thing with their heals. They have the option to turn some of their heals into healing over time or just straight potency heals and or barrier. I don't know if it can swap between all three, but they basically have these abilities built into their kit. Let them change things up. So let's say you're in a part of the fight where you really need to focus on healing, but you want to get some damage up. Turn your DPS spell into a dot and just let it roll so you can focus on healing instead of just dealing consistent direct damage. Or if there's multiple targets, you want to turn your damage spell into a dot to dot up those multiple targets. It's just there's so much flexibility in the Sage kit that I'm just like, dang, like it just seems to not that the other healers won't have a place, but it just seems so unique that it feels like it outshines the other healers. Does that make sense? Like,
no, you're right. And I think it's because this healer isn't as straightforward as the other ones. Like there's so many more layers to it. And like the ability you're talking about is called Eucrasia, and it augments certain offensive and healing magical actions into the Eucrasian version of it. And, it changes those things. Like Dosis is your, that's your glare, that's your broil, that's when you spam. But then if you hit Eucrasia and then cast it, it becomes a dot. So that dot is baked in, that your spam attack and your dot is baked into one attack, but you can augment it. And that honestly, that's really cool. I think that's super cool. It's crazy. And like the augmented abilities are actually pretty dang strong. It's a lot of here, let me look at these. Okay, so for example, your ability diagnosis, which is, just a single target heal. But if you pop Eucrasia, it becomes Eucrasian diagnosis, and then it's going to be a weaker heal, but it's also going to throw up a shield. So I almost feel like this ability to augment it is to honestly save button bloat because you're getting 6 skills baked into 4 buttons, essentially. It's your 3 skills and you have Eucrasia, and Eucrasia changes all 3 of those skills into something completely different. So it saves on button bloat. It also is really cool flavor to where you more situational times. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I just can't emphasize the flexibility enough. Sage seems like a healer that not only their healing kit, but their DPS kit is just based around knowing a fight and making decisions and choices for, Eucrasion and what was that other ability? Cardia. Like, it's just like knowing this is a job that's going to reward a very intelligent gameplay and very reactive players who know fights, who know their party. Like, the limits of this job are not known. It is limitless. Like, you can just pull things off if you know your group and know the fight very well and you know what to do. Like, it's going to be great.
And like, I think Cardia has more applications than we're even thinking. Like, think of the people who like to solo Palace of the Dead. Imagine you throw up Cardia and then you can just tank hits because you're getting healed as you're dealing damage. And I think the things people are going to come up with the longer we have this job in our hands is going to be awesome.
Agreed. And I love I love the way the little oh man, I can never the Nuliths, is that what they're called?
Nuliths.
I like the way the Nuliths zip around and the animations they make. Like, when you're DPSing, the lasers are just tight. Again, everyone memes about the Gundam thing, but it really does remind me of like Gundam type stuff. And I love that one of their abilities is they charge up and shoot a giant laser. I'm just like, when they started designing this job, we talked about how like Sage early on, it was like, okay, Sage, this does not look like Sage to me. I think Sage and I think of, old man with staff, very caster type thing. And while the name is a little misleading, when they designed those Nuliths and they looked at it, they knew what the target audience was going to be. And they were just like, this is going to shoot lasers and it's going to shoot a lot of variations of lasers and it's going to be tight. We know people are going to say this is like a Gundam. Let's give them a Gundam.
Exactly. And, that's how I felt as first as well. But now after seeing it in action, it, triggered that Gundam love that I have that kind of lay dormant within me for a very long time. Because as a kid, I was a massive Gundam fan. I got all the action figures. I watched the animes constantly. I was a massive Gundam fan as a kid. And as I got older, I kind of, just kind of forgot about it and didn't, wasn't really in tune with it. But after seeing this just like brought all those feelings from when I was a kid right back up to the surface. And I've sunk so deep down into the Gundam fandom again. And I'm literally the first day at Endwalker, I am leveling a Sage. I'm so excited for Sage. And not only that, but they have an ability called Pepsi. So like, does it get better than that?
There's so many memeable names in here.
These are actually all real words. Like, these aren't made up words. There's a Reddit thread where somebody went and translated all of these things. They're actually legitimate medical terms.
And we'd be remiss to not mention the fact that they have a gap closer. It's a healer with a gap closer, and their gap closer, they use those little Nuliths as basically Gundam rockets and launch themselves forward.
Yeah, and it's called Icarus,
which is a great name for it. And a lot of people were like, why does a healer need a gap closer? And I'm pretty sure that they have a DPS ability that's a point blank AoE around them. And I feel like it's completely understandable to have a gap closer so you can get close to those enemies to spam that DPS spell.
Yeah, I actually don't know what their AoE is, because normally healers get their AoE at 50, but they get a heal at 50. I can't. What is there?
Maybe they cardia.
Oh, here it is.
Into a heal.
Oh, no, wait, that's an adder stink, because they have like all these different things. That's called Toxicon, which is another dope name. So, yeah.
Is it their 46 Dyscrasia, which deals unexpected damage with a potency of 160 to all?
Oh, yeah, there
enemies?
it is. Level 46, they actually get it. Dyscrasia. It looks like it has a 5 Yulm radius and no range, so that looks like point blank. And you get that 6 levels after Icarus. So I'm guessing that's why. Which is weird, because Scholars and White Mages are both also point blank. But they don't like Scholar.
Look forward to the next expansion, and then the other healers get a gap closer.
I want to see like a Scholar like grab their fairy's hand and their fairy like flies them over as a gap closer,
or just throws them.
It just like winds them up and chucks them across the field.
It would be even better if it's a Lalafell Scholar. It's just like their fairy just chucks them.
White Mage has wings; they could just like glide over. Then an Astrologian, I don't know. They control gravity.
They just ride in on a rocket. I don't know, like a friggin' meteor. Just like zoom in,
like a shooting star.
Oh man. All right. So healers, fair.
Anyways,
What's your take? What's your take on healers? How do you feel?
I'm really excited. I think healing was in an interesting spot in Shadowbringers. White Mage was ridiculously strong. And now I think they're kind of bringing everything more up in line with White Mage. I think Scholar needs a little more attention. It doesn't need a full big rework like Dark Knight, but it does need a little more attention, I think, to really give it that oomph and that ability to recover from big accidents easier. So I like to see a little bit more on Scholar. I'm excited to get my hands on Astrologian because it got a mini. I'll call it a mini rework, like half a rework, because they changed the way healing works in general. And then obviously we all know that I am going to be maining Sage for at least the first patch, the launch of Endwalker. So I'm going to be healing a lot. I'm really excited.
I'm excited for you to heal me. Yeah, healers are, and keep in mind that my opinion is coming from somebody who does not heal and is on the outside looking in. I think the healers are great. I think seeing how Sage works is a testament to what they've been able to do with a healer, like this many years building jobs and stuff like that, and all the things they've learned from it. They came out with just a healer that is just so unique and cool, and I think that's a testament to the job design that team can do. Kind of like when we got Astrologian and Heaven's Ward. Astrologian was so cool, and the card drawing effect, it was so unique. And they've just jumped that bar even higher. And at the same side of that, on the other side of that coin, it just kind of makes the other healers like Scholar and White Mage, not necessarily Astrologian, because Astrologian still has just so many like unique, interesting mechanics there going on with their cards. White Mage, I feel like they kind of designed themselves into a corner where it's like White Mage does what it does so well that like every time an expansion comes out, I'm always thinking like they didn't give White Mage a lot, but like White Mage is in a great place, so they didn't need to give White Mage a lot. Like White Mage just keeps doing what it's doing. But on the same side, I'm like, I kind of feel bad because I feel like people want to be excited over their job, and like White Mage stuff comes out and they look at it and they're like, okay, well, I guess White Mage didn't get a lot. And it's like, I hope people are excited about White Mage because White Mage is tight, but like at the same time, I'm just kind of like, I wish you guys got more.
White Mage is that vanilla healer. That's the healer that when it's in a party, you're never worried because White Mages are so strong, no matter the skill level of the player, that you're going to succeed. White Mage just has that like good of a toolkit, and everything works so well with each other. White Mage is just such a strong healer. It's hard to compete because White Mage is that good. You can always fall back on a White Mage. They are the healer.
If you're a White Mage and you're happy with these changes, then great. That's all that matters. I just am sitting here like, I wish you guys got more exciting stuff, but that might be misplaced.
Maybe.
All right, let's move on past healers and dive into physical ranged DPS. We're going to start with Bard. Fair, hit us with a one-liner.
Hopefully they can actually hear their own music this time.
Yes, there was, I don't remember if it was addressed, but I know Yoshi P and team were undecided whether songs this time around would actually boost the Bard as well. I don't know if that was ever determined or not with the job changes in the media tour, but we'll see. But let's start with Bard. At 82, a new trait, Quick Knock Mastery. It's going to upgrade Quick Knock to Aladdin's Bite.
Aladdin? I don't know. Aladdin Bite. There we go.
Aladdin Bite. There we go. At 82, they get Aladdin Bite. Go figure. And it's a weapon skill. It's got a range of 12 yalms and is a radius of 12 yalms. And it's going to deliver an attack with a decent potency to all enemies in a cone before you. As an additional effect, 30% chance to recast timer of Bloodletter and Reign of Death will be reset, which I feel like Quick Knock already did. I don't think that's new.
Yeah, it did.
Okay, so this is basically just a potency increase for their AoE ability. There you go.
Yeah, they're just, upgrading Quick Knock to, I'm assuming, a cooler looking animation because the current one's kind of boring and very A Realm Reborn looking, and it was time to bring it up into the era of better looking abilities. So this is great. I love it.
That makes sense. All right, at 84, they get a new trait called Enhanced Bloodletter, which is going to allow the accumulation of charges for consecutive use of Bloodletter and Reign of Death for 2 charges.
This, honestly, right here, for all you bards out there, this should be probably the most exciting thing ever, because if you're anything like me, you know that when you have Mage's Ballad up, you might as well just be spamming either the Bloodletter or Reign of Death ability, because it comes off cooldown so often. So for you non-bard mains out there, the way it works is when you're playing Mage's Ballad, each tick of both of your dots independently have a chance to reset the cooldown of both Bloodletter and Reign of Death. Bloodletter and Reign of Death share a cooldown. So Bloodletter is your single target, Reign of Death is your AoE. So while you're playing Mage's Ballad, you have, two dots up. Each dot can trigger that cooldown. So you're spamming it so much to the point where like you're losing out on uses of it because it's coming off cooldown so much. So now that the fact that you can stack 2 charges of it it's going to be good.
That's really
great.
good, actually, now that I understand how that works.
Yeah, this is really, really good. And I remember Mr. Happy talking about how in his video when he was playing Bard that it was still coming off cooldown so much, he almost wished he could have 3 charges.
Look forward to the next expansion.
Yeah.
All right, at 86, they get the trait Enhanced Apex Arrow, which is going to grant Blast Arrow Ready upon executing Apex Arrow after the Soul Voice gauge has reached 80 or higher, which has got a 30-second duration. It's going to tie right into their 86, a weapon skill, Blast Arrow, a range of 25 yalms and a radius of 25 yalms. It's going to deliver an attack to all enemies in a straight line before you with a hefty potency, with a 60% fall off for all remaining enemies. It can only be executed while under that Blast Arrow Ready effect, and it cannot be assigned to a hotbar. So it's going to be turned there from something.
Yeah, I don't know what.
Maybe after, because it says upon executing Apex Arrow. So maybe Apex Arrow turns into this after that Soul Voice gauge.
Yeah, that's my assumption. And honestly, this is really good. Give Bard a little more AoE, which it's already like they have 1 AoE and then, Reign of Death, which is on cooldown. So give them more AoE. This is great. I love it.
At 88, they get a new trait called Enhanced Troubadour. It's going to reduce Troubadour's recast time to 90 seconds.
Great. Love it.
And then at 90, they get a trait and an ability. So their trait is Minstrel's Coda, which is going to grant Mage's Coda, Army's Coda, or Wanderer's Coda upon singing Mage's Ballad, Army's Paean, or the Wanderer's Minuet, respectively. And this ties into their 90 ability, Radiant Finale, which has got a 20 ohm radius, 90-second cooldown. It's going to increase damage dealt by self and nearby party members. It's got and this specifies self, so that's good.
I hope that stays.
It's going to have a 15-second duration. The effectiveness is determined by the number of different coda active in the song gauge. For 1 coda, it's 2%, 2 coda, 4%, and 3 coda, 5%. And it can only be executed when at least 1 coda is active. So 5% damage buff party-wide if you've got 3 codas going.
Yeah, this is just going to be a literal finale to your rotation. Like your Bard rotation is you go through your 3 songs and then you kind of reset. But this kind of has something, a little oomph at the end of that for actually properly going through all those 3 songs and collecting those codas. And it's another buff as usual. Hey everyone, this is Fair. I just had to jump in to say that we did lose a little bit of raw recording right here. It was not recoverable. Bear with us as this weird jump cut goes from the end of Bard into the beginning of Machinist.
At 82, their new trait is called Spreadshot Mastery. It's going to upgrade Spreadshot to Scattergun, but I'm just going to call it Shotgun because
yeah,
looks like a shotgun. At 82, that new weapon skill is, of course, Scattergun. 12 yalm range, 12 yalm radius. It's going to deliver an attack with a potency of upgraded AoE to all enemies in a cone before you, and it's going to increase the heat gauge. So again, it's pretty much just an upgrade from potency upgrade from Spreadshot. It's got a new name, new higher potency.
I don't know how I feel about this because I actually really like Spreadshot's animation and sound effect, and I need to go back and see how I feel about the scattergun sound effects. So I don't know how I feel about that yet.
At 84, they get 2 traits. One is Enhanced Reassemble, which is going to allow the accumulation of Reassemble to charge twice.
Juicy.
And then they get Marksman's Mastery, which is going to increase the potency of Heated Split Shot, Heated Slug Shot, and Heated Clean Shot.
Yep, and that's your 1, 2, 3 combo, so that's just going to be stronger.
At 86, they get a new trait called Queen's Gambit, which is going to, after executing the Pile Bunker, the Automaton Queen will also execute Crowned Collider. So it just looks like a new ability that your Queen Automaton does.
Yep, and it's a pretty strong one.
Yeah, that goes right into the 86 ability, Crowned Collider for Automaton Queen, which is an ability. Just to highlight this, we are going to touch on this potency because it hits hard. It's going to deliver an attack with a potency of 750, which is a placeholder, but basically it's going to hurt.
Yeah, that's going to be good.
And potency increases as the battery gauge exceeds required cost at time of deployment. And then it will shut down after execution. So
yeah, the rest is pretty typical. That's cool. Like, the only thing that kind of stinks is it's not very interactive for the player. That's all automatically done. So, but
yeah.
like you do your rotation correctly and you get your battery gauge up to exceed the required cost. The time of deployment is going to do higher than that 750, which is already typical of Machinist right now anyways. So that's cool. It's got another harder hitting ability.
And then at 88, they're going to get a trait called Enhanced Tactician. It's going to reduce the Tactician recast timer to 90 seconds. I don't know what that does.
It's a utility skill. I think it like reduces everyone's damage taken by like 10 or 15% or something like that.
Okay, cool.
It's utility.
All right, and then at 90, they get a new weapon skill called Chainsaw, which ties into our Edgar reference. It's a 60-second recast time and a radius and range of 25 yalms. It's going to deliver an attack to all enemies in a straight line before you with a pretty hefty potency. And a 65% fall off for all remaining enemies. It's going to increase your battery gauge by 20, and it does not share a recast timer with any other actions.
Yeah, this is cool. Like, it's how I would expect Machinist to evolve, and it's what's happening. Machinist is, pretty much staying the same with some new tools.
That was good.
That was good.
All right. And then we are going to dance right into Dancer. Which Dancer I don't know much about.
One line. I got a one-liner.
Hit me with it.
So this one-liner is not as good as the other ones because this is kind of old. But anyways, have you ever loved RNG so much you wanted an entire job based around it?
There we go. Dancer. I don't know much about it, but Fair, you've played it quite a bit, so you'll be able to touch on all of this pretty well. At 82, actually, before we dive in, at 80, they got some changes to some of their 80 abilities. Let's touch on that first. So at 80, I don't know if this is a new or a rework, so fill me in here, Fair, but they get...
This is a rework for improvisation.
Okay, cool. So improvisation, it's an ability, radius of 8 yalms, 2-minute recast timer, and it says dance to the beat of your own drum, granting rising rhythm to self. Stack increases every 3 seconds up to a maximum of 4. Additional effect healing over time for self and nearby party members with a low cure potency for 15 seconds. And the effect ends upon using another action or moving, including facing a different direction. Cancels auto attack upon execution.
So originally, improvisation made it to where you would just start gaining your Esprit gauge, and there was no restrictions. Like, you just popped it, and it was a buff. So this is kind of interesting. I guess, this is for that downtime, I guess.
Yeah, or like if you're just standing there, boss goes away, and you're, sitting there having to just wait their ultimate attack, you can just dance and heal, I guess.
Yeah, but I guess it ties right into its other level 80 ability.
Improvised Finish, also an ability, 8 yalm radius, 2-minute cooldown. It's going to create a barrier around self and all nearby party members. Damage absorbed increases with stacks of rising rhythm, so ties right back into there. 0 stacks, it's going to create a barrier of 5% maximum HP, 1 stack 6, 2 stacks 7%, 3 stacks 8%, and 4 stacks 10% of maximum HP. And it's a 30-second duration, and it can only be executed while improvisation is active.
So yeah, I guess this ties right into that. You're in a raid, you're sitting there waiting for the boss to do its ultimate. You start your improvisation dance, and then before it hits, you pop Improvised Finish, and you give your whole party a little shield. And they were getting healed the whole time. So that just really ties into the Phys ranged aspect where, they're all kind of, support while also DPSing. And that's actually kind of cool. So,
you saying that, just gonna take a break from Dancer real quick, short break, and just say, I hope that with the next expansion, they do a physical range DPS, like Beastmaster or Ranger or something, and it's just a straight pure DPS, and they're like, screw party utility, I'm just going to deal lots of damage from real far away using a physical weapon.
That'll probably become my main if that ever happens.
Well, I hope it does happen, because I feel like they need it. I feel like all the ranged DPS have some type of like heavy baked in utility, and I just want to see like a strong DPS. Like give me the physical range DPS version of Samurai.
Oh yeah, dude. Like give me World of Warcraft's Hunter, which is Beastmaster. Let me go tame an animal.
Oh god, I hope they implement that well if they do it. I know they do not like pet jobs.
I know we'll never see it, but it's a pipe dream.
All right, so let's dive into the new dancer stuff. 82, the enhanced trait they get is enhanced technical finish. It's going to grant flourishing finish after executing technical finish, which is a 30-second duration that you can do it. And that ties into their 82 ability called Tilana. It's a 1.5 second recast timer, 15 yalm radius. It is an ability, and it's going to deliver an attack to all nearby enemies with a potency of pretty decent for the first enemy, 50% fall off for all remaining. And as an additional effect, it's going to grant standard finish and Esprit to self and party members designated as your dance partner. And then the standard finish effect, it's going to increase dealt by 5%, 60-second duration, and it can only be executed while under the effect of that flourishing finish that we mentioned.
Interesting. I feel like I don't recognize any of this stuff from any of the videos. I mean, that's cool. Yeah.
We'll power through. 84, enhanced Esprit. It's going to increase the Esprit gauge by 10 upon successfully executing reverse cascade, fountain fall, rising windmill, or blood shower. So it just seems like more Esprit generation.
Yeah, and like so previously, I believe this was I'm trying to remember how this worked or if this is the change. So I know they said they're making it to where Esprit is guaranteed, but I don't know if that's through this trait or if that's a retroactive change. And now they're just adding Esprit onto these abilities as well, because these are all your AoEs. So I think maybe they're just making it where you're getting it off your AoEs now as well. So you're just gonna be able to use your resource ability more. So that's cool.
Tight, yeah. At 86, they get the trait Enhanced Flourish, which is going to grant fourfold fan dance upon executing Flourish. Again, 30-second duration there. And yeah, it's going to tie into Fan Dance 4, which is an ability. It's got 15 yalm range, 15 yalm radius, 1 second recast time. It's going to deliver an attack to all enemies in a cone before you with a decent potency with a 50% AoE fall off. And can only be executed while under the effect of a fourfold Fan Dance.
They're just extending their AoE abilities, which is cool.
Yeah. 88, they get the enhanced trait, Enhanced Shield Samba, which is going to reduce the Shield Samba recast time to 90 seconds.
That's cool. Yeah. The more utility.
And then at 90, they get a trait and a weapon skill. Their trait is Enhanced Devilment, which is going to grant a Flourishing Starfall upon executing Devilment, 30-second duration. And at 90, that weapon skill is 25 yalm range and radius, and it's called Starfall Dance. And it's going to deliver a critical direct hit to all enemies in a straight line before you with a pretty decent potency and 75% fall off for all remaining enemies. I feel like we see that 75% whenever it's a direct crit hit that's guaranteed in there, which kind of makes sense. It can only be executed while under that Flourishing Starfall effect. So
yeah, and Devilment is your raid-wide buff that increases everybody's crit and direct crit by 20% for, I don't remember, like 10, 15 seconds, something like that. So you're going to want to use Devilment more and then bust out this Starfall Dance.
Yeah, so there you go. And that's physical range DPS. So Fair, what's your take? What do you like? What do you not like?
Things pretty much stay the same. All these jobs kind of evolved the way I would expect them to. Nothing even got really a big rework except, some minor changes with Dancer. But overall, like if you liked these jobs before, you're gonna like them again. So keep playing them. It's a great time to be a ranged Phys if that's what you love, and the next step, it's the next evolution of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything negative to say about any of them. I personally am not a support class type character, and kind of like I touched on, I feel like all of the physical range DPS are supporty type characters, and that's not really my shtick. But I do feel like they were all in pretty decent places, and all of this just feels like natural evolutions to their toolkit, which is great. If you're playing these jobs, you're gonna have like a really nice ease into things, and it built upon the things that you already loved about them. So great, cool.
Yeah, I'm all here for it.
All right, so let's dive into casters.
Do we want to start or end with it?
Let's end with it. Let's end with Summoner.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, let's end with Summoner. Save the best. I don't know about the best, but the most excited for me for last. All right. Let's start with Black Mage.
Okay, here's my one-liner for Black Mage.
Yeah.
Enochian is now a passive, so welcome to your new main.
That was a big thing, man. Enochian. So I've tried my Black Mage is actually at 80, and as far as combat jobs go, I don't have a ton of jobs at 80. But there were definitely times where I was not super happy with the direction Summoner went, or I struggled with it and was like, you know what? I'm gonna see if I like Black Mage, because Black Mage is the big number caster, and like they're the massive numbers. And I could never. I tried it, leveled it, struggled with it, and I disliked Enochian more than I disliked anything they were doing with Summoner. So I always went back to Summoner. Them making it a trait is tight.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, dude. Enochian was why I never leveled Black Mage past 70, because I absolutely hated the way it interacted with everything. And I know a lot of people are saying Black Mage is literally perfect, so why are they changing it? But I'm like a hard disagree. It's the main reason I didn't like it, because Black Mage has literally zero mobility. So if you have to dodge a mechanic and Enochian falls off, thus not being able to complete your rotation, you're starting over from scratch. It's so much lost damage, and I hated it. So with it being a trait now, you can kind of get back into the groove of things that much easier, or after recovering from like a death.
Yeah, that was always a big thing for me too with Black Mage. Is like I always missed the mobility of Summoner. Current iteration of Summoner before Endwalker, and I think even in Endwalker too, just has so well. In Endwalker, they don't have as many OGCDs, but right now they have a ton of OGCDs and instant cast spells. To maximize Summoner, you'd want to stand still and cast Ruin quite a bit, because Summoner had that whole Ruin Mage thing going on right now. But you had the ability to be like, I'm going to do the weaker potency instant cast Ruin so I can run around more. I love that about Summoner. I did not like the restriction of like, stand still, healers adjust, everyone adjust around me for Black Mage. It was not fun.
I agree.
All right, so let's dive into Black Mage. They've got some trait updates from starting at level 1. So let's touch on a couple of these. At level 1, they get the trait Aspect Mastery, which is the casting of certain fire and ice spells will grant a stack of Astral Fire and Umbral Ice, respectively. Maximum stack 1, 15-second duration. While under the effect of Astral Fire or Umbral Ice, casting a spell of the opposite element will consume no MP. Effect does not apply to Flare. So starting at level 1, they're just making it easier to swap between your ice and fire phase.
Yeah, like a lot of these lower than level 80 changes are them smoothing out the leveling experience for Black Mage. And also, like when you're synced down, your entire toolkit isn't just gutted. And, they're introducing concepts of the job sooner to get you used to it. So that's pretty much what all these lower level changes are.
Yeah, and at level 20, they get the trait Aspect Mastery 2, which is going to allow that stack of Astral Fire and Umbral Ice to be 2. At level 35, it's going to go up to 3 stacks, and the casting of Fire 2 or Blizzard 2 grants a maximum stacks of Astral Fire or Umbral Ice, respectively. And then at 80, they get the trait Enhanced Foul, which is going to allow for the immediate casting of Foul. So to me, that reads like Foul's going to be an instant cast based off of that trait.
That's what I'm going to guess, but my Black Mage is at 70, so I don't even think I have Foul. I don't know how that ability or that spell works, so let's just go with it's instant cast, I guess.
So let's dive into the new of Black Mage. At 82, they're going to get Aspect Mastery 4. It's going to upgrade Fire 2 and Blizzard 2 to High Fire 2 and High Blizzard 2. And at 82, those spells are, of course, High Fire 2 and High Blizzard 2. 5 Yalm radius, 25 Yalm range. They are spells. High Fire 2 is just a straight potency increase to their Fire 2 AoE. And High Blizzard 2 is a straight potency increase to their Blizzard potency AoE. So just straight up potency increases for their AoE spells.
Well, this is actually cool. So the prefix high is actually brand new to the Final Fantasy series. And I know we've touched on this before, but I'm going to go over it again. Yoshi P had to go to the Final Fantasy brand manager to get the blessing to create a new tier of Black Magic to have in this game in order to take Black Mage up to this level. So High Fire and High Blizzard, that is the newest, highest tier. That's beyond 4. That's beyond Aga. It's beyond all of that. This is new to the Final Fantasy franchise. And while I think High Fire is kind of uninspired, and I think they could have done a lot better than that, this is still really cool.
Yep. All right, let's touch on their 84 trait, Enhanced Mana Font. It's just going to reduce the recast timer of Mana Font down to 120 seconds. So 2-minute recast timer there.
Sweet.
At 86, they get the enhanced trait, Enhanced Enochian 3, which is going to improve Enochian's magic damage increase to 20%. So when you've got Enochian active, you're just getting 20% extra magic damage.
Which now you'll always have it active. Yay!
Yeah. And then at 86, they also get a new ability called Amplifier. 2-minute recast timer. It is an ability. It's going to instantly grant you Polyglot, and it can only be executed while under the effect of Astral Fire or Umbral Ice, but it just basically gives you a free Polyglot stack, which you can use to cast Polyglot.
I have no idea what that is.
It's one of their like big nukes that they got at 80, I want to say, or earlier in the expansion. But basically, you just kind of you get a free one to where you don't have to like maximize your rotation and like nail all the buttons to be able to use it. You just get a free one.
Great. Can't say that's bad. That's awesome.
And then at 88, they get the trait Enhanced Sharpcast 2, which is going to allow the accumulation of charges for consecutive uses of Sharpcast. So 2 charges on your Sharpcast. For those unfamiliar, Sharpcast basically guaranteed you got a proc when you did certain things, whether it was Thunder or your Fire proc, the Firestarter proc. It was just like boom, guarantee. So now you get 2 charges of it.
Great.
All right, and then at 90, they get their cool stuff, and they get Aspect Mastery 5 as a trait. It's going to add a paradox marker onto your elemental gauge, so your job gauge is just going to have more bells and whistles on it now.
As if it already didn't have tons.
Right? Oh my god, their job gauge is already very busy to me, but let's power through. This marker is made active after reaching Astral Fire 3, then swapping to the opposite element. Conversely, the marker can also be made active after reaching Umbral Ice 3 and gaining 3 Umbral Hearts, then swapping to the opposite marker. So basically, if you imagine that, that Black Mage rotation as that pendulum of going ice to fire to ice to fire, you're going to get a marker every time you go. That pendulum swings back to the opposing element when you've maximized the other one in the right way. So you're just going to kind of start getting this marker filled. And that ties into your level 90 spell, Paradox, which is a 25 yalm range. And it's going to deal unexpected damage with a potency, pretty decent potency. The Astral Fire bonus is going to refresh. If you cast this while you're in your fire phase, it's going to refresh the duration of Astral Fire and have a 40% chance to grant you that instant Firestarter proc. And then it's got a duration of 30 seconds. And the Umbral Ice bonus is it's going to require no MP to cast and refresh the duration of Umbral Ice. And this is their cool spell where we got to see fire rise from the ground and the ice twirling around it. So it's just a neat spell. It's going to reward you for just already doing the rotation. It's not like some extra extension or like some new clanky thing that got added on. You're literally just always doing that pendulum motion of fire to ice, and you're just going to get this free spell for completing your rotation that you can do. It's tight.
Yeah, that's great. I got no complaints.
So that's Black Mage.
Sweet. I dig it.
Let's talk about Red Mage. And Ooh. Red Mage, I dabbled with a little bit, but don't know as well. But I did dabble a little bit. It looks like they had a adjustment to one of their traits, Mana Stack, at 68. It's going to add a Mana Stack to your balance gauge upon landing Enhanced Riposte, Enhanced, I cannot say these things, Zwershah, or Enchanted Redoublement, or Enchanted Moulinet, up to a maximum of 3. Upon gaining 3 mana stacks, Ver Thunder and Ver Thunder 2 are upgraded to Ver Flare, and Ver Arrow and Ver Arrow 2 are upgraded to Ver Holy.
Well, my one-liner for Red Mage is it's going to have very much better AoE.
Oh yeah, let's touch on that AoE.
That's kind of, what this is all what this mana stack thing is tying into, because now they're putting Ver Holy and or Ver Flare as AoE abilities, which is why now you see like things are turning into it, and this is going to be cool. Red Mage is going to be flashier than ever.
Yeah, I feel like they really boosted Red Mage's AoE damage across the board, which is tight. So let's touch on their new stuff. 82, Red Mage is going to get Red Magic Mastery 2, which is going to upgrade Ver Thunder to Ver Thunder 3 and Ver Arrow to Ver Arrow 3. They're just jumping Ver Arrow 2 right there. Upon gaining
that already
those
exists.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
They're AoEs.
That explains it. I don't get to make my joke. Upon gaining 3 mana stacks, Ver Thunder 3 is upgraded to Ver Flare, and Ver Arrow 3 is upgraded to Ver Holy.
Yep.
Which is going to tie into their new spells at 82. Ver Thunder 3, which is going to deal lightning damage with a potency, decent potency. It's going to increase your black mana by 6 and a 50% chance of becoming Verfire ready. And Arrow 3 at 82, which is going to deal wind damage with that same good potency and increase your white mana by 6 with a 50% chance of becoming Verstone ready. So just sounds like upgrades to those spells.
Yep, pretty much. That pretty much works the same. And also, that just reminded me, they reduced, now this is flat across the board, retroactive, all the way back to level 1. They reduced the amount of mana required to go into your melee combos. So normally you want to be above 80 right now, but they're changing it down to 50.
Ooh, that's nice. So you're gonna melee combo more.
Yeah, like people are already formulating ways you could do like 3 or 4 melee combos in a row with the right setup. And so things are going to play a little differently with Red Mage.
Nice. At 86, they get a new ability called Magic Barrier. 2-minute recast time, 15 yalm radius. It's going to reduce magic damage taken by self and nearby party members by 10%, while increasing HP recovered by healing by 5% for a 10-second duration.
That's cool, man. Give them a little bit of utility. They're already kind of the support of the caster world, so.
Yeah, they're the utility mage.
Yes.
88, they get enhanced acceleration, which is going to get acceleration, a maximum of 2 charges.
That's great.
And
Love
then
it.
at 90, they're going to get a trait and a spell. At 90, their trait is enhanced manification, which is going to increase the maximum stacks of manification to 6.
Great.
And then their spell at level 90 is resolution. And 25 yalm range, 25 yalm radius. It's going to deal unexpected damage to all enemies in a straight line before you with a really nice potency, 750. So just to kind of point out how nice it is, with a 60% fall off for all remaining enemies. It's a combo with Scorch. And as an additional effect, it's going to increase both black mana and white mana by 4. Scorch is changed to resolution upon landing Scorch as a combo action. And this is just going to change on your bar. You don't assign it.
Yeah, this is great. You know, Red Mage as a caster already kind of had like a weak AoE, and with the addition of Resolution and the changes to Verholy and Verflare, they're really bringing up Red Mage's AoE capabilities in this game, and that's awesome. I love it.
All right, so that's Red Mage, and last but not least, we finally get to talk about Summoner.
And here's my one line. It's Summoner, now with actual summons.
It's so good.
This is pretty much going to be all you, because I know almost nothing.
So Summoner was the third job we didn't know we were getting, because let's be real, the rework that Summoner got was some next level. It's not like I'm not even going to go into the tooltips. We are treating this like Reaper and Sage because there's too much here. It would be ridiculous to try and parse all this and read all the tooltips. So I'm gonna high level it. But Summoner was always weird. And a little bit of background: Summoner, when I started A Realm Reborn, felt like a bad warlock from World of Warcraft. And as somebody who, like, the big reason historically that I got into Final Fantasy was because of summons, and as somebody who played Final Fantasy 11, and whilst we can talk about how weird Final Fantasy 11 is, summoners in that game I loved. I thought it was such a great job. But to come to A Realm Reborn and to have a really janky warlock that didn't even get the things about warlock right, and to be a dot mage with like weird pet AI and like you summon little eggies that aren't actual summons, it felt weird. That's why I stopped being a summoner in A Realm Reborn. I swapped to Black Mage for a bit and then to Dragoon, if you remember.
I do.
It was weird. And then we got Heaven's Ward. Heaven's Ward didn't introduce new summons, but we got the Dreadworm Trance. I thought that was tight because we were getting close to Bahamut. I was like, ooh, Bahamut's the Dreadworm. We get to do like that, the Death Flare. I thought this was cool. Basically, just like not much changed with Summoner other than reducing the number of dots that we could put on an enemy. And they actually gave us a burst window because that was something Summoner did not have in A Realm Reborn. And then we got to Stormblood and we got to summon Bahamut on top of the Dreadworm Trance. And they were fine-tuning things. We were still that dot mage, and we finally got to really summon something. But even then, Bahamut had weird jankiness. He didn't auto-attack by himself. He would auto-attack only if you attacked. God forbid there were movement. He would follow you around, and he would prioritize following you around instead of auto-attacking based off of your attacks. Then we got Shadowbringers, and then they basically gave us Phoenix on top of Bahamut. Phoenix was tight. I liked the way the combo 1-2 spells worked within Phoenix. But again, the same issues. Phoenix followed you around. It only auto-attacked when you attacked. By the time Shadowbringers came around, it felt like they had designed Summoner into a really bad corner, and it was built off of these weird systems that they implemented with A Realm Reborn. It became a job that it was rewarding if you were good at it, and I loved being good at it. I still love being good at it, and a lot of people feel this way, but it was a job you had to fight against to be good at and to make it work for you. You know, we kind of got the early rumblings that Summoner was going to go through a rework when Yoshi P did an interview. It may have been actually with Mr. Happy earlier before we got any of this stuff, where he said Summoner was kind of at a breaking point with how much it was doing. Yeah, you know, there were memes about like Summoner had like a 2-minute rotation, and if anything fell apart in that 2-minute rotation, the whole thing fell apart. If you died, you had to start over. Summoner was a punishing job. I love summoning Bahamut and Phoenix, but it was difficult. And I think there was like a census, and Summoner was one of the 3 least played jobs. Like out of all the jobs, it was one of the 3 least played. And then we have new Summoner. And I'm so excited because we're actually a Summoner now. I'm still over the moon. Like when we saw that job trailer and we saw Garuda and Titan and Ifrit coming down, it was just shenanigans.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I remember losing my mind watching that live letter.
Yeah, it was just phenomenal. So dots are gone. Summoner no longer does dots. Dots are gone. No more dots. And that's phenomenal because I dots are not, when I think of Summoner, I do not think of dots. And I'm so happy it's gone. I'm so happy I don't have to worry about juggling them. It's gone. And the days of being a Ruin mage where it's like, okay, I literally have nothing else I can do. Spam Ruin over and over again. That's gone too. Ruin's still there. It still factors in a little bit, but like you're not a Ruin mage. So basically the way Summoner works now, and this is also kind of intimidating, man, because like when I go back, like I play Summoner, and not only am I going to have to relearn the job at 90, I'm going to have to relearn the job when I go into Sastasha, like synced down for like a leveling roulette or something. I'm going to have to relearn it at like every level range because it was changed all the way back to level 1. And like I have to learn the job at every stage at like 50, at 60, at 70, at 80. It's going to be crazy. I'm actually, as excited as I am, I'm a little anxious and a little intimidated.
Well, I mean, you always wanted to replay through for the story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to now. So the way Summoner works is basically you're going to Dreadworm Trance and Bahamut are now worked in together. There's no like separate Dreadworm Trance that you have to go through to get to Bahamut. It's all baked into one now. Some of the big key things is that Bahamut and Phoenix now auto attack all by themselves. You don't have to like cast to get them to do these things, and they stay stationary. They're not moving around. They're just turreting and auto attacking, and that's fantastic. Like that alone is such a big relief. So basically, you go into your Bahamut cast. You also don't have the Eggies anymore. You've got Carbuncle there, and Carbuncle does not auto attack. So like pet damage with your little E guys and stuff is just gone. You don't have to worry about pet AI jankiness at all. It is so great. So you've got Carbuncle, and he's got some abilities. He's got the shield ability that Titan has, so you get to cast him, and then he's got like a shield that he can put on you, so that's great. And then he's got your party buff where it's like 3% damage for the entire party, and it's for 30 seconds. That's a long damage buff. Like I feel like that's kind of disgusting.
That is pretty gross.
And so Carbuncle just does that when he's out. You got to use his abilities for that. You can just go right into summoning Bahamut. Your Dreadworm Trance is baked in. You're doing your death flares. You're making Bahamut do his death flares. And instead of like casting Ruin when Bahamut is out, your Ruin and your AoE spell Outburst now change. They like straight up change into new abilities. Like your button just swaps and it becomes Astral Flare and Astral Impulse. Astral Impulse is your single target spell. Astral Flare is your AoE's spell, and you hit them, and it just changes your button automatically, and you just spam them. There you go. Once Bahamut is done, then you've got these gems that unlock, and it's a topaz, a ruby, and an emerald. You get to use them. They're basically your pet summon abilities will change to these spells, and you rotate through. You summon out Titan, Ifrit, or Garuda, and then these spells, these gem brilliance type spells on your bar, change to whatever summon you have out, and they all have different abilities. So if it's Ifrit, You've got like a melee combo in there where you gap close and then you melee slam the ground. And if you've got Titan out, for Ifrit, it's got like long cast times for it. And they deal high potency. If you summon Titan out, it's basically like a 1-2 combo, basically, where it's like a one cast and an instant cast, and then you have a off the global cooldown mixed in there. And then for Garuda, you've got like really, really fast casts, and she's got the ground AoE dot that you put on the ground for the mobs to stand in, and just really fast damage. It's interesting because you can summon them in whatever order you want. So like depending on what's going into the fight, this is now like instead of a 2-minute static rotation that you just can't screw up, you get to summon these primals based off of what's going on in the fight right now. So like as of right now, we don't know what the final potencies are, but Titan is going to be like your big potency, like your big burst window. So like raid buffs, trick attack, like Titan is going to be who you want to get out, which I think is interesting. I wouldn't have suspected Titan to be that primal that we want out for that. But like if you want to go in and melee with Ifrit, you better make sure that boss isn't going to be doing a bunch of AoE stuff. Like you've got to plan around that. And if you're going to bust out Garuda to throw down your ground dot, you better make sure the boss is going to stay stationary. So you have to be aware of all of these things. And Summoner is now like this job of choices, basically. Like I need to know the fight. So there's that added layer to it. I also didn't note, but when they actually come out, they do their ultimate move. So Titan does Earthen Fury, Ifrit does Hellfire, and Garuda does the Howling Eye? Is that her move?
I don't know.
Her big tornado move, but basically it's just massive AoE damage when they come out. So Summoner's still doing a ton of AoE damage. And then after you summon all three of them, and it lines up all perfectly to where like essentially Phoenix would be coming off of cooldown at this time. You have plenty of time to get through all three of these fights, the summon phases. You get to go right into Phoenix. Phoenix no longer does the 1-2 combo that Phoenix does currently. It's going to work just like Bahamut did, where your Ruin and your Outburst become the Phoenix spells, which are, oh my God, what are they? I can't remember the name of them. But basically, you get to just summon you get to use that single target spell or the AoE spell. Same thing, Phoenix is going to auto attack all by itself. But the one really cool thing that I'm stoked on is that you also get a new ability with Phoenix that we didn't have currently called Rekindle, which is you can put it on a party member or yourself. It's going to give you Rekindle. It's going to cure you. And then if your HP falls below 50%, you get an extra cure. That's a hot for 15 seconds. So that's just like adding even more flavor into Phoenix's abilities already. And after you finish Phoenix, all three of those Topaz, Emerald, Ruby gems become active, and you go right back into that rotation of summoning them again. And then it's Bahamut. So you have Bahamut, your summoning phase, then Phoenix, your summoning phase, and there's almost no Ruin casting. Ruin 4 is still there because you still have Fester, which is not based off of dot damage anymore, just an OGCD. And when you do your Aether Flow, your Aether Charge ability, you basically Ruin 4, you get a free cast that does like really big AoE damage to like you can sit on for like a full minute until you're ready to use it. I mean, that's Summoner. Like it's a lot because of just the level of rework that went involved in it. But it's just this awesome flow. A lot of people are concerned about like, oh, all of the buttons are just being changed and you're just going to be pressing these couple of buttons the whole time. Like it's flashy, but like, I don't know, man. I'm so in love with the way Summoner sounds. I'm intimidated that I'm going to have to relearn all of this, but just the fact that you're summoning, like they come out and do their ultimate moves, you still get Bahamut and Phoenix, and you've got Garuda, Titan, Ifrit on top of it. I'm just over here just like, oh man, I want the next expansion. Are they going to add a fourth gem? Can I do Leviathan? Like, come on, guys. It's such a great thing because now they've basically given them a clean slate to hopefully design even cooler things moving forward. I can't gush enough about it. I love it.
I think we're definitely in for the pinnacle of Summoner.
Yeah, I would not like, even when we knew there was going to be a rework coming, like I said, based off of that interview, I did not know this was going to be it. I never would have guessed this. You know, a lot of people are worried about how Summoner is going to work because this is a massive change and people really, really liked that. You know, people love being that underdog job that they do high damage with that other people won't touch. You kind of develop a certain level of pride in it. But I don't know. This is just so cool. I feel like a summoner. It is a little weird that Carbuncle's out running around, and like I haven't looked at Carbuncle in so long, and like Carbuncle's just gonna be standing there, in between certain things, and I'm gonna have to use abilities. I don't know if you can glamour Carbuncle into Eggies or something like that. It's just Carbuncle being in the fray is kind of a weird aesthetic choice all of a sudden. But having access to all the summons, which they don't, I should note that like when you summon Garuda, Ifrit, and Titan, they come down and do their ultimate attack and then they bounce. They're not there for the entire thing. They're not out for like 15 seconds like Bahamut and Phoenix are, but it's still their full model, their ultimate attack, and then your normal attacks change to the element of the primal. It's just so cool. It feels like I don't know if it's Invoker or Evoker, but it feels like that all tied up in Summoner and like the most beautiful package. This is all I could have asked for.
I'm excited to see where it goes, and I'm not leveling my Summoner until Endwalker so that I get that full new-ish experience.
So casters. I mean, you heard me just monologue about Summoner. How do you feel about casters, man?
I've never really been big into casting except for Red Mage here and there, just because I find it kind of simple with high mobility and a splash of utility. So I don't know. So they're cool. I've never really been a caster type ever in any video game, but I'm excited to give Black Mage a try again with its changes. Obviously very excited for Summoner because it's flashy as heck, and excited to see more Verholy and Verflare with Red Mage.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you couldn't tell, I'm friggin' over the moon for Summoner, and am so stoked, but also a little scared to learn and play it. At the same time, I feel like if I were ever going to try Black Mage, like this is the expansion to do it. Like not having to juggle Nokian is tight. Red Mage is cool. Like nothing they did to Red Mage is bad. I feel like everything's a bonus, but like comparatively, I just like the other two jobs so much more that like I'm just not really going to touch Red Mage, I don't think, unless I just level it to level it. My focus really is going to be Summoner and then Reaper, and hope that I can get my brain around Reaper. But if I don't, Summoner is like the most amazing thing ever. Let's be real.
Yeah.
All right. So we have covered all of the jobs. Any final closing thoughts, Fayer, before, because I think this episode comes out on the 11th. The next episode we do is going to be after Endwalker. So this is kind of like our final chance to say anything before we go into Endwalker. You got any final thoughts?
Not really. Just other than I think this game is in the best spot it ever has been, and they're taking it into an even better one by the sounds of the changes. And I'm really excited to, get out there, connect more with the Final Fantasy XIV community, and just chat about our favorite game,
Yeah, I mean, the Shadowbringers was one of the best storylines Final Fantasy has had in a long time, and it was the best expansion of a video game ever for me personally. And the success that Shadowbringers has brought them, along with so many other factors that we could spend a whole episode talking about. But 14 is now the most profitable Final Fantasy in the entire franchise. 14 is riding high on the success. Yoshi P is, in a recent interview, basically got the approval that money is no longer an expense for stuff. So like the things 14 can do moving forward is insane and just limitless, while also kind of weird because this expansion, while not the end of 14 even a little bit, they have stated many times they have a roadmap for the next 5 to 10 years, but this is the end of their arc that we've been doing for a long time with the story. So it's just, I think you said it best. This is the best time to be playing Final Fantasy XIV. Like they have earned every bit of success that they have earned through blood, sweat, and tears, bringing this game from the laughingstock of a Final Fantasy and a absolutely botched launch to get here is just like phenomenal. And now as a player, to have my job finally be at the place that I've always wanted it to be on top of it is just a cherry on top of already the most delicious dessert ever. Like Endwalker just needs to get here. I'm so excited.
I know. We're at 2 weeks away, something like that. I don't know, 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that.
15 days for early access.
There we go.
All right, but that about wraps this episode up. Special thanks again to Larryzaur, MTQCapture, Mr. Happy. Of course, this job document, all of their links will be in our job description. I'm thinking of jobs. Our episode description. There we go. And Fayer, let the masses know where they can find you.
You guys can find me at Feyerbrand on pretty much every social media. Twitch, which is where I'm going to be streaming buttloads of Final Fantasy XIV content. Instagram for more daily life stuff. Twitter to see me to read me saying dumb things, TikTok to watch me doing dumb things, and YouTube for Final Fantasy XIV guides. So you guys can check me out. I'm Feyerbrand.
And if you're enjoying the Magus Brothers podcast, you can find us at Magus Brothers on Twitter. Our website is www.magusbrothers.com. Check us out there for links to our YouTube and where you can find us on your podcatcher player of choice. If you're enjoying our podcast, please share with your friends, your coworkers, your family, your pets, anyone who will listen to you. And please review us on your platform of choice. If it's YouTube, comment and say hey. Let us know what you liked. Come say hey on Twitter. We like it when you say hey. Join our Discord.
Hey.
Yeah. Hey, how are you doing? Join our Discord and come hang out with us and talk about it. And I hope you guys enjoy. If you're playing 14, I hope you're getting ready, clearing out your retainers, your inventory, holding on to your leaves, leveling all the other jobs you need to level. Whatever you're doing, buckle up because I am stoked for this ride.
It's gonna be good.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening and bye.
Bye.